Aisha Nyandoro, and I am delighted to celebrate 50 years of Toni Morrison's Bluest Eye, which feels particularly relevant in 2020 because we need constant reminders of what Black excellence looks like, and Miss Toni Morrison was the personification of Black excellence. As you know, this is a read along. I'll share some brief reflections after I read my section. You can catch the full reading on the gram at Love as a Kind of Cure, at Love Kind Cure. Okay, here goes. Here's my reading. Please read along. The easiest thing to do would be to build a case out of her foot. That is what she herself did. But to find out the truth about how dreams die, one should never take the word of the dreamer. The end of her lovely beginning was probably the cavity in one of her front teeth. She preferred, however, to think always of her foot. Although she was the ninth of 11 children and lived on the ridge of red Alabama clay, 7 miles from the nearest road, the complete indifference with which a rusty nail was met when it punched a clear through her foot during her second year of life saved Pauline Williams from total anonymity. The wound left her with a crooked, archless foot and flopped when she walked. Not a limp that would have eventually twisted her spine, but a way of lifting the bad foot as though she was extracting it from little whirlpools that threatened to pull it under. Slight as it was, the deformity explained for her many things that would have been otherwise incomprehensible. Why she alone of all the children had no nickname. Why there were no funny jokes and anecdotes about funny things she had done. Why no one ever remarked on her food preferences. No saving of the wing or neck for her. No cooking of the peas in a separate pot without rice because she did not like rice. Why no one teased her. Why she never felt at home anywhere, or that she belonged any place. Her general feeling of separateness and unworthiness she blamed on her foot. Restricted as a child to this cocoon of her family's spinning, she cultivated quiet and private pleasures. She liked most of all to arrange things, to line things up in rows, jars on shelves at canning, peach pits on the step, sticks, stones, leaves, and the members of her family let these arrangements be. When by some accident somebody scattered her rows, they always stopped to retrieve them from her, and she was never angry, for it gave her a chance to rearrange them again. Whatever portable plurality she found, she organized into neat lines according to their size, shape, or gradations of color. Just as she would never align a pine needle with the leaf of a cottonwood tree, she would never put the jars of tomatoes next to the green beans. During all her 4 years of going to school, she was enchanted by numbers and depressed by words. She missed without knowing what she missed, paints and crayons. Near the beginning of World War I, the Williamses discovered, from returning neighbors and kin, the possibility of living in a better place. In shifts, lots, batches, mixed in with other families, they migrated in 6 months and 4 journeys to Kentucky, where there were mines and mill work. When all of us left down home and was waiting down by the depot for the truck, it was nighttime. June bugs were shooting everywhere. They lighted up a tree leaf, and I seen a streak of green every now and again. That was the last time I seen real June bugs. These things they have up here aren't June bugs. They're something different, something else. Folks here call them fireflies. Down home, they was different. But I recollect that streak of green. I recollect it well. In Kentucky, they lived in a real town, 10 to 15 houses on a single street, with water piped right into the kitchen. Ada and Fowler Williams found a 5-room frame house for their family. The yard was bounded by a once white fence against which Pauline's mother planted flowers and within which they kept a few chickens. Some of her brothers joined the army. 1 sister died. 2 got married, increasing the living space and giving the entire Kentucky venture a feel of luxury. The relocation was especially comfortable to Pauline, who was old enough to leave school. Mrs. Williams got a job cleaning and cooking for a white minister on the other side of town, and Pauline, now the oldest girl at home, took over the care of the house. She kept the fence in repair, pulling the pointed stakes erect, securing them with bits of wire, collected eggs, swept, cooked, washed, and minded the two younger children, a pair of twins called Chicken and Pie, who were still in school. She was not only good at housekeeping, she enjoyed it. After her parents left for work and the other children were at school or in the mines, the house was quiet. The stillness and isolation both calmed and energized her. She could arrange and clean without interruption until 2 o'clock when Chicken and Pie came home. When the war ended and the twins were 10 years old, they too left school to work. Pauline was 15, still keeping house, but with less enthusiasm. Fantasies about men and love and touchings were drawing her mind and hands away from her work. Changes in weather began to affect her, as did certain sights and sounds. These feelings translated themselves to her in extreme melancholy. She thought of the death of newborn things, lonely roads and strangers who appear out of nowhere simply to hold one's hand, woods in which the sun was always setting. In church especially did these dreams grow. The songs caressed her, and while she tried to hold her mind on the wages of sin, her body trembled with redemption, salvation, and a mysterious rebirth that would simply happen with no effort on her part. In none of her fantasies was she ever aggressive. She was usually idling by the riverbank or gathering berries in a field when someone appeared with gentle and penetrating eyes, who with no exchange of words understood, and before whose glaze her foot straightened and her eyes dropped. The someone had no face, no form, no voice, no odor. He was simply a presence, an all-embracing tenderness with strength and promise of rest. It did not matter that she had no idea what to do or to say to the presence. After the wordless knowing and the soundless touching, her dreams disintegrated. But the presence would know what to do. She had only to lay her head on his chest, and he would lead her away to the sea, the city, to the woods, forever. There was a woman named Ivy who seemed to hold in her mouth all the sounds of Pauline's soul. Standing a little apart from the choir, Ivy sang the dark sweetness that Pauline could not name. She sang the death-defying death that Pauline yearned for. She sang the stranger who knew. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storms, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on. When my ways grows dreary, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call. Hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on. Thus it was that when the stranger, the someone, did appear out of nowhere, Pauline was grateful, but not surprised. He came strutting right out of a Kentucky sun on the hottest day of the year. He came big, he came strong. He came with yellow eyes, flaring nostrils. He came with his own music. Pauline was leaning idly on the fence, her arms resting on the cross rail between the pickets. She had just put down some biscuit dough and was cleaning the flour from under her nails. Behind her, at some distance, she heard the whistling, one of these rapid high-note riffs that black boys make up as they go while sweeping, shoveling, or just walking along. A kind of city street music where laughter bellies, anxiety, and joy is as short and straight as the blade of a pocket knife. She listened carefully to the music and let it pull her lips into a smile. The whistling got louder, and still she did not turn around, for she wanted it to last. While smiling to herself and holding fast to the brake in somber thoughts, she felt someone tickling her foot. She laughed out loud and turned to see. The whistler was bending down, tickling her broken foot and kissing her leg. She could not stop her laughter, not until he looked up at her and she saw the Kentucky sun drenching the yellow, heavy lidded eyes of Coley Breedlove. When I first seen Coley, I want you to know it was like all the bits of color from that time down home when us all children went berry picking after a funeral, and I put some in the pocket of my Sunday dress and they mashed up and stained my hips. My whole dress was messed with purple and it never did wash out. Not the dress nor me. I could feel that purple deep inside me. And that lemonade Mama used to make when Pap came in out the fields. It'd be cool and yellowish with seeds floating near the bottom and that streak of green them June bugs made on the trees that night we left from down home. All of them colors was in me, just sitting there. So when Coley came up and tickled my foot, it was like them berries, that lemonade, them streaks of green the June bugs made, all come together. Coley was thin then, with real light eyes. He used to whistle, and when I heard him shivers, come on my skin. Pauline and Coley loved each other. He seemed to relish her company, and even to enjoy her country ways and lack of knowledge about city things. He talked with her about her foot and asked when they walked through the town or in the fields if she were tired. Instead of ignoring her infirmity, pretending it was not there, he made it seem like something special and endearing. For the first time, Pauline felt that her foot was an asset. And he did touch her firmly but gently, just as she had dreamed. But minus the gloom of setting suns and lonely river banks, she was secure and grateful. He was kind and lively. She had not known there was so much laughter in the world. They agreed to marry and go up north where Coley said steel mills were begging for workers. Young, loving, and full of energy, they came to Lorain, Ohio. Coley found work in the steel mills right away, and Pauline started keeping house. And then she lost her front tooth. But there must have been a speck, a brown speck easily mistaken for food, but which did not leave, which sat on the enamel for months and grew until it cut into the surface, into the brown putty underneath, finally eating away to the root, but avoiding the nerves, so its presence was not noticeable or uncomfortable. Then the weakened roots, having grown accustomed to the poison, responded one day to severe pressure, and the tooth fell free, leaving a ragged stump behind. But even before the little brown speck, there must have been the conditions, the setting that would allow it to exist in the first place. In that young and growing Ohio town, whose side streets even were paved with concrete, which sat on the edge of a calm blue lake, which boasted an affinity with Oberlin, the Underground Railroad station just 13 miles away, this melting pot on the lip of America, facing the cold but receptive Canada. What could go wrong? Me and Coley was getting along good then. We came up north, supposed to be more jobs and all. We moved into 2 rooms up over a furniture store, and I set about housekeeping. Coley was working at the steel mill, and everything was looking good. I don't know what all happened. Everything changed. It was just hard to get to know folks up here, and I miss my people. I weren't used to so many white folks. The ones I seed before were something hateful, but they didn't come around too much. I mean, we didn't have too much truck with them, just now and then in the fields or at the commissary. But they weren't all over the place. Up north, they was everywhere, next door, downstairs, all over the streets, and colored folks few and far between. Northern colored folk was different too, dickty-like. No better than whites for meanness. They could make you feel just as no count, except I didn't expect it from them. That was the lonesomest time of my life. I remember looking out them front windows, just waiting for Collie to come home at 3 o'clock. I didn't even have a cat to talk to. So much to process um, in those 5 pages. Just hearing or reading Pauline and her longing to be seen. Yeah, her longing to be seen. And how that longing to be seen makes us really, really vulnerable to the first thing that comes along, the first person that comes along that provides us any attention, because we're just so hungry for that. And, that's what I see when I reflect on these pages that we just read, just that desire and that hunger just to be accepted, and not just accepted for what it is that you bring to the home, or what it is that you can provide, what it is that you're giving, the constant extraction of yourself, but just being accepted for truly who you are, and the ability to laugh out loud and to be seen, and for someone to see all of you. She talks about him tickling her foot, and how for the first time she didn't feel as if, her foot was something to be embarrassed about, how she actually was excited and felt, as if her foot could be an asset. So that desire to just be seen, and how truly lonely she must have been without even knowing that she was lonely, because she had set up a world where she so intently positioned the stuff and making sure that she had order. And that to me really also symbolizes the needing to control something, and the comfort in having that control, because you just recognize, you feel like you have no control over anything in your life. So if I can control these adamant objects and make sure that they're lined up, I'm lining up my water bottles, and making sure that they're lined up, that gives me a level of comfort, because that's something that I can control. And how many of us right now, I know with me, that thinking about needing to have control and the comfort I get in that, right now in the backdrop of so much uncertainty, how many of us are really finding comfort and joy in that ability to control that something that we feel is ours. And don't even get me started about the needing to be seen. I mean, I can write a whole book about that just myself. I do think the part that she talks about here about, being up north, how that was some of the loneliest times of her life. I can so relate to that, as I remember going from Mississippi for undergrad to Tennessee from Mississippi, where I grew up, to Tennessee for undergrad, and then moving to Michigan, which was the farthest north I'd ever lived at the time. And that just being the loneliest place I had ever lived. And when she talks about how the white folks up there were different, I was like, yes, in Mississippi we had white folks, of course, but just how they were so different in the north, and how I experienced some of the most racism and hatred in my entire life during those 7 years that I lived in Michigan. So I think this sets us up well for what is to come. The question, what could go wrong? That knowing that something is about to go wrong, and not knowing what it is knowing what it is because I read the book, but if this was my first time reading it, not knowing what it is, as my heart dropped, because for a brief moment it seems as if Pauline is happy, but you know that happiness is short-lived. So I have definitely enjoyed reading along with you, and I would say that I would think that the guidance that is coming from here, especially for women right now, is how we all need to find our own light, and how we all need to see ourselves, and we need to figure out how to manifest joy from within, so that we don't need that joy to reflect from outward things. Because as long as we need it to come from outward manifestations of other people seeing us or our ability to control, um, we never are going to have the power that we need to be our own light. And right now, in the midst of so much darkness, the ability to be your own light and the ability to manifest joy and recognize that your joy cannot be compromised, or your joy cannot be given away, or that your joy is not reflective of what is happening. That is something that is something that is within. I think that's the lesson for so many of us women right now, is that joy is not determined by circumstances. It's because it's something that we can manifest within. I've enjoyed reading with you.